Let's Go Race, the channel for virtual motorsport.
Hello and welcome to a new video on my YouTube channel. First ein Info to my German-speaking viewers. Dieses Video ist auch mit deutschem Kommentar verfügbar. Der Link zum deutschsprachigen Video findet ihr in der Videobeschreibung. This video is about the VPG SimLab Elemento steering wheel. As you can see, the steering wheel is built in the style of Formula cars. The steering wheel which you can see here is currently still a prototype. To the final version, some parts of the steering wheel will be changed. I will show and explain everything in this video. We will also go into detail about the different installed and included components in the package. I will talk about the materials, the quality, and I will explain how the steering wheel feels. After that, I will make a conclusion about the steering wheel. And at the end of the video, I will do a test drive with the steering wheel on my simulator, in the form of my triple screen onboard videos. Let's start with the technical details and the materials of the steering wheel. The steering wheel is 300 mm wide and 148 mm tall. The steering wheel weighs about 1150 grams. The body of the steering wheel is made out of aluminum and has a matte black surface. The production numbers are also laser engraved on the back of the steering wheel. You also have the option to laser engrave your name and race number on the steering wheel. The front plate is a 4 mm thick carbon plate with a matte surface. The button guards, or rather covers on the front, are also made of aluminum. The button guards can also be customized. Here you can choose from 4 different colors on request: black, gold, blue and red. Like the steering wheel body, they have a matte surface. Now we continue with the grips. The grips are covered with Alcantara in the current prototype version. However, this will be changed in the final version, which can be purchased. In the final version, this will be replaced by injection molded rubber grips, as used by many other manufacturers. These offer even more grip on the grips. In addition, you can drive without gloves without ruining the grips. They not only have many advantages, but also, in my opinion, look much better. The shape of the grips is very good and they hook the hands very well. So you have a lot of grip on the grips. Now it's time for the buttons. There are 9 push buttons on the steering wheel. The push buttons have a good resistance and make a nice clicking sound. The push travel of the buttons is very short and we only have 1 point of resistance. In combination with the tight resistance, we get a very good feedback from the buttons and feel very well whether we have pressed the button completely. On the upper left side, there is another 4-way funky switch with a push button function. We can push this funky switch to the left, right, up and down. In addition, we can also use them as a push button. This gives you 5 different functions on one button. The push function is very good and tight, even a little better than the push function of the push buttons. And also when we push to the left, right, up and down, we have a good resistance. We have an audible and noticeable click when we push in the respective direction. The design of the funky switch will be changed a little to the final version. In the final version, the funky switch, which is made out of aluminum, will be matte black. Let's continue with the 3 rotary switches in the middle of the steering wheel and the 4 rotary switches on the outside of the steering wheel. The 3 rotary switches in the center of the steering wheel have 24 positions. The rotary switch engages in each of the 24 positions, and each of the 24 positions sends a signal to the PC. The rotary switches on the outside of the steering wheel have 12 positions. The rotary switches on the outside thus engage in 12 positions and send 12 signals to the PC with one complete rotation. All rotary switches can be turned infinitely in both directions. The rotary switches send 2 signals to the PC. One signal when we turn clockwise and one signal when we turn counterclockwise. The resistance of the rotary switches on the outside of the steering wheel is okay, but could be a bit stronger in my opinion. The rotary switches at the front are a little tighter, but they also could be a little stronger and engage more clearly in the engagement points. Because you often have to make adjustments on the steering wheel, and you have strong force feedback effects on the steering wheel at the same time, and you also wear motorsport gloves, the rotary switches could be a bit tighter and the engagement points of the rotary switches could be a bit clearer for my liking, so that we feel the engagement points even more clearly when driving with motorsport gloves. You notice it when you have turned a position further, but it could be clearer for my liking. When driving without gloves or with thin sim racing gloves, the engagement points are clearly noticeable. Only when driving with standard thicker motorsport gloves, as they are also used in real motorsport, the rotary switches could be a bit tighter and the engagement points a bit clearer. You can feel the clicks when driving with motorsport gloves, but not quite as well as when you drive without gloves or with thin sim racing gloves. The knobs are made of aluminium. These are available in various matte colors. The rotary knobs on the front in black and gold, and the rotary switches on the side in black, blue and gold. On request, you can also have a scale glued onto the rotary switches on the outside. One point that bothered me a little when driving is the small space between the grips and the rotary switches on the outside. Sometimes you touch the rotary switch because of the small space. The rotary switch adjusts itself as a result. This was therefore changed to the final version. In the final version, which can be purchased, rotary switches with a shorter shaft are installed, so that there is significantly more space for the fingers. This problem has therefore been solved to the final version. Now to the stickers which are glued on the steering wheel. These can be ordered in 4 different color variants. Now we come to one of the most important parts of the front of the steering wheel, the dashboard and the LEDs. The steering wheel has a 4.3-inch dashboard and 18 RGB LEDs. The Nextion Power dashboard and the LEDs are operated with the SimHub software. You also have to use the Nextion function available in SimHub. How to set up everything so that you can use the steering wheel with SimHub will of course be explained to you when you buy the steering wheel. Even if you have problems with setting up the steering wheel, you will get a lot of support from VPG, so that you can use your steering wheel as quickly as possible. If everything is set correctly, it should look like this for you. You can configure your dashboard and LEDs in the Nextion display section of SimHub. Here you can create different dashboard and LED configurations. Nextion 1 for me is the VPG Elementor steering wheel. Under template, you select which dashboard you would like to use. However, you must not, before using a different dashboard, you must first install the matching layout on the steering wheel. This is necessary every time you change dashboards. Dashboards that you can install are dash layouts that have been created especially for Nextion displays. In addition to the pre-installed Elementor layout, several other Nextion dash layouts can be downloaded for free from sites like Race Department. You have to install them as follows. For compatible Nextion dash layouts, you must first double-click on the contained Nextion uploader file. It is important that SimHub is closed during this process. If there is no Nextion uploader file included with the dash layout, you can create one with the Nextion editor. The right Nextion editor version is automatically pre-installed with SimHub. How to create a Nextion uploader file and what you need is explained in the video description. Now continue with the installation of the layout on the steering wheel. After double-clicking on the uploader file, another window opens. Here you can enter the correct port to which the steering wheel is connected and click on Upload. Then the layout will be installed on the steering wheel. This takes about 3 minutes. After the download, the steering wheel should be disconnected from the USB for about 30 seconds and then reconnected. After the layout has been installed on the steering wheel, you can also use the matching template in SimHub. Under Mapping, you can make changes to the layout. Under Edit LED Layout, you can configure your 18 LEDs. You can also select here how many LEDs are installed on the unit. Here in the configurator, you can set everything you would like to have displayed by the LEDs. You can choose exactly which LEDs should be used for a certain function, what color the LEDs should have, and you can choose whether it should be a permanent light or flashing light. In addition, you can make many other settings. You can then test your settings in OpenTest Data Editor. Here you can also set how bright your LEDs should shine. There are also a few other improvements in the final version. An improved dashboard will be installed in the final version. In addition, the steering wheel will have an even more powerful processor with 120 MHz. The current prototype version still has a processor with 72 MHz. So we are done on the front of the steering wheel and we continue on the back. On the back is the hub to screw your steering wheel to a quick release system. This hub has a bolt circle diameter of 70 mm and can be bolted with 6 bolts to a quick release. The hub in the current version is still made of aluminium. In the final version, a hub made of 4 mm thick carbon plates and black anodized aluminium spacers will be used. The steering wheel is also equipped with 2 magnetic shifters. The shifters are made out of aluminium and are matte black anodized. The pedals are made out of 4 mm thick carbon plates with a matte finish. The shifters have a very good resistance and give a very good feedback, so that we can feel very well whether we have pressed the shifter completely. In the current prototype version, the shifters have a very long shift travel compared to magnetic shifters from other manufacturers. In the final version, this will be replaced by shifters with a shorter shift travel to provide even faster shifting and a better shifting feeling. However, I find that even in this prototype version, the shifters already feel very good and I got along very well with them. Let's start with the 2 clutches. The 2 clutches are made of matte black anodized aluminium and the 2 pedals are made of 4 mm thick carbon plates with a matte surface. The clutches have very good and tight resistance and are very comfortable to use. The only thing I didn't like about the clutches was the long clutch travel, but this will be changed in the final version. In the final version, the clutches will have a shorter clutch travel. In addition, it will be possible to change the clutch travel via an adjusting screw. The clutch travel will be adjustable via the silver adjusting screw, which can be seen in this picture. In addition, there will be a configuration mode in the final version, which is installed directly on the steering wheel. This means that you do not need any external software, but you can change the clutches directly on the steering wheel. In this configuration mode, you will be able to configure the clutch travel or the slip point of the clutch directly on the steering wheel, without having to make any settings in an external software or in the simulation. Now we come to the last part of the review video, the cable and the connection options. The cable is connected with a screwable connector directly at the back of the steering wheel. On the other side of the cable we currently see two USB to connect the steering wheel to the PC. In the final version you will only need to connect the steering wheel with a single USB 2.0. The cable of the final version of the steering wheel will be 80 cm long. Because of the spiral shape of the cable in a certain area, the cable can reach up to 1.5 meters in length. Please note that a USB hub with additional power supply is recommended to be able to use the steering wheel to the full extent. If you use a USB hub with additional power supply, you can use the brightness of the 18 LEDs with 100% brightness. You can also connect the steering wheel directly to your PC. You can use a USB extension up to 2 meters. However, you will then have to reduce the brightness of your LED significantly. How much you have to reduce it depends on the power of your USB port. You can also use an active USB extension, but you should not use a USB extension longer than 5 meters. It is recommended you only use 4 meters, otherwise data transmission may be interrupted. With such a configuration, you also have to reduce the brightness of the LED significantly. So the best option is to use a USB hub with an additional power supply. Then you can use the steering wheel with the LEDs to the full extent, and there will be no complications. That's everything there is to say about the steering wheel. Now we come to the final conclusion and the cost of the steering wheel. The final version of the steering wheel will cost £950, excluding shipping and VAT. Now it's on to the final conclusion of the steering wheel. The steering wheel feels very good while driving. The grips have a lot of grip and are very well shaped. The buttons and the side knobs are easy to reach without having to take your hands off the steering wheel. The buttons have a good resistance and pressure point. Only the rotary switches could be a little tighter in my opinion, so that you can feel the engagement points a bit more clearly, especially when driving with motorsport clothes. I am very happy with the shifter pedals, and in combination with the changes that will be made to the clutches until the final version, the clutches will also be convincing and give a very good feedback. The materials used on the steering wheel are all of high quality and are beautiful finished. In addition, the different colors give you some options to order the steering wheel the way you like it. The dashboard and the LEDs also look very good. The dashboard has a very good resolution and the colors are also very nice. For the dashboard, a Nexon system has been chosen for the Elementor steering wheel. There are already some dashboard layouts for and from various cars and racing series that can be downloaded for Nexon displays. However, the selection of ready-made and downloadable dashboard layouts is still relatively small. Here you are bound to the Nexon layouts for SimHub because of the Nexon system. In the video description I have linked some dashboards that you can use. In addition, I have listed all the file types that are required for the Nexon display in the video description. The right Nexon editor for creating your own dashboards and converting certain file types is pre-installed with the SimHub software. I have written down where you can find the Nexon editor in the video description. What I like very much is the possibility to configure the clutches in the configuration mode integrated in the steering wheel. This will be available in the final version, which can be purchased. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any further questions, please write them into the comments. Now we come to the promised trouble screen onboard video with my motion simulator. Have fun with the video and see you next time.